right, welcome to Primos for Life, the wrestling podcast made for the fans, by the fans. Como siempre, I am Eddie, el niño vaque. We got Ariel, el sueño ecuatoriano bisueta. And we are your self-proclaimed, undisputed co-host tag team champions of the world. And in tonight's episode, we jump into a new Lucha Hot Tag. We discuss hardcore wrestling in 2025. And remember the rules: one topic, one opinion each, one final thought, and we end the discussion. So como siempre, sit back, grab a snack, and let's get it on. What's up, Primo?
What's going on, dude? How are you?
Good, man. Just excited, looking forward to the weekend, just to chill and just to catch up on some things, man. I feel like I have so much to watch.
Yeah. Well, this is, flooded with different kinds of promotions and matches and events and everything. So there's worse ways to spend a weekend. I'll tell you that right now. Much worse.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, not just that, not just wrestling, just shows in general. There's so many things,
Well, yeah, I mean, you work and you're running around. You can't watch this, can't watch that. I gotta wait for the wife to watch this. Yeah, man. Yeah, you gotta set a time and place, brother. Trust me, I know. Believe me. I'm just coming off of being a little sick. I was able to knock out a couple things while I was laying in bed. Like, okay, I can burn through this now because I got a couple, 2 days of being knocked out.
Yeah.
But, I feel you, man.
You sound better, so that's good.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, if I wasn't sounding good, I was gonna let you know it was no go. But excited. Glad you're gonna knock out some stuff. Glad we're doing a quick taping today, another episode to have on the books, and excited, man. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And today we are gonna jump into another episode of Lucha Hot Tag. And
Lucha Hot Tag, Lucha Hot Tag, Lucha Hot Tag.
Wow, you really are committed to these theme songs.
So you're gonna wait.
And as always, for our listeners, Ariel, would you do the honors of just reminding what the Lucha Hot Tag is?
So the parameters of the Lucha Hot Tag is pretty much just a hot tag. It's a real quick shot. It's a quick shot, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, about one topic that we want to, something came up recently that made us think about this particular conversation. And so it was either something, really important in the world of wrestling or, it was something that warranted our attention and a conversation, we think. So real quick, no recaps or nothing like that. Just a quick 15, 20 minutes. If you like the topic, great. I think it's a fun one. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially with listeners, people our age, who've been in wrestling as long as we have. So that's it. One topic, 15, 20 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get in, let's get out, call it a day. Lucha Hot Tag.
Let's go. All right. And today's Lucha Hot Tag topic is hardcore wrestling in 2025.
That's the key thing in 2025. We're not talking about the overall hardcore wrestling. 2025.
Yes. And then, okay, and if you would allow me just to have my seat in the therapist.
Lay back, throw your head on the pillow, my man. I got my pad and my pen in hand. Let's roll.
All right. So here's my beef or my thoughts on hardcore wrestling in 2025. In past episodes and in our discussions, we discussed, certain matches in AEW. There was the Will Ospreay steel cage match, which I told you there were some hardcore spots in there. Same thing with Toni Storm and her hardcore match.
But she was just bloody red, crimson mask.
Right.
Style.
Unrecognizable. Yeah. Exactly. And then recently there was also an episode of Dynamite where it was Adam Copeland versus Jon Moxley. And, we said that we were going to save this from our last episode where there was a spot where Adam Copeland hits Moxley with a spiked, board. It made direct contact with the nails on that bat or board, whatever it's called. And then ultimately leading into a suplex that initially, it gets lodged into his back when he gets up. Yeah. So just to set the parameters on why this conversation was sparked, and now here are my thoughts.
A lot of stuff like that going on recently, and you felt it was time for others. Yes, I understand completely, man. Understand.
Yeah. So ultimately, I understand that there's an audience for it. There's an audience for all levels of entertaining wrestling, right? Because you have everything from hardcore wrestling to traditional wrestling to lucha libre style to, strong style, Japanese style, like things like that. So I understand that there's a market and a niche for everything. I get that. And ultimately in watching these, examples that I just listed, I do think that there is a place for hardcore wrestling, right? I don't agree with the fact that hardcore wrestling should be displayed though on primetime television. Okay. And because my thing is this, right? And hear me out. I feel like if you're paying, $60 for a pay-per-view, by all means, you're getting your money's worth. You're paying for something you truly, and that's what they show on those pay-per-views. Then by all means,
Right.
like you earned your money. That's what you paid for. Cool. Now,
Yes.
my issue though is with, the primetime spots. I feel like, and mind you, I'm not a parent yet, and it's funny because I sound like our parents when we were younger. Like, how could you watch that? Right. But for me, the first thing I think of is like, man, if John Michael was like flipping my nephew, by the way, listeners, if my nephew was, flipping through the channels and happens to see this spot, he's going to think it's okay to like whack, his siblings in the back with a bat. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
first thought I got.
Yeah.
And
It's the argument that was had when we were kids and they were talking about Looney Tunes.
right.
Like I'm not gonna get TNT and blow up the Roadrunner. Like that was our argument. Like we know better, but now as you older and matured, you're seeing through a different.
Yeah, absolutely, do a whole new different lens. But then it even gets deeper than that, right? It transported me back to when I was a kid and we were watching the Attitude Era during that time. And I remember, and it's crazy because I thought I erased this memory, but clearly it's still there and it brought it back. I remember I was at a friend's house one time and we were quote unquote playing wrestling, and he had, I don't know if you remember these, but back in the day when you used to go to Yankee Stadium or Met Stadiums, you could buy the little like 12-inch ruler, like baseball bat. You remember those?
Oh yeah. It's like that big. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With a team logo.
I have one somewhere over here from their 50th anniversary. That's 50th anniversary season. I have one.
There you go. All right. So I remember, one of those were in play. We, quote unquote, were having a hardcore match. And instead of me covering the shot to the head, I accidentally hit my friend in the head and causing him to get stitches. You know what I mean? So it's not, you see what I'm saying? Look at that reaction. So you see, it's not just like, a time period thing that happened over 20 something years ago. So, well, I'm 30 something now. So over 30, like almost 30 years ago. And it really made me think. And I was like, man, does it deserve, based on those parameters, does it deserve a spot on primetime television, or am I just being overly dramatic? That's it. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. All right. So devil's advocate, because that's the whole point of the podcast. Two people. I agree with you in a lot of what you say. Okay. But once again, I like to pride myself on the fact that I am able to take my fan hat off and put on a JM or a, third party. What you said before about it being on, pay-per-view or anything like that, kind of tough window there because the people who went there paid for those seats. So your argument of if you paid for that, you can get it, kind of falls because the people there paid a lot more money than the $40 I laid out to watch that shit at home, So one thing. Secondly, I think it's something that you and I can both have agreement in terms of this fact is that there's a way to do it without it being as salacious and as gory and as, out there as it is, because while you're right, there is a big group of people who like to see it. And I'm not going to lie. I enjoy a good thumbtack, a good something every now and then. Absolutely as well. But there is definitely, I'd like to think, a level of couth that can be brought to this and done when done intelligently and done smartly. It helps enhance the match. Sometimes I feel like they go to these gory aspects and it almost cheapens the match. Like it's like, look what we can do. And it's like, well, I just love the 10 minutes that you guys had in the ring before that, like the actual match. I appreciate that. And to see broken glass, so I agree with you in that aspect in terms of just finding a smarter way to go about it. I think is ultimately what, finding that line, is what I think we would like to have happen, because growing up the way you and I did with ECW, which was Extreme Championship Wrestling, for those who don't know. And I mean, we're talking the gangsters, New Jack and Mustafa, come out with a shopping cart, trash cans, knives, this, that, and the other thing, falling, off of 20-story rafters, or not story, 20 feet rafters and stuff, like coming down. So I think we enjoyed that. And we were younger, we were more into it. As you said, now that we've matured and we've gotten older, there's a way to do it, keep it interesting, keep it fun, and not have it be as gory, because I agree with you 150%. So yeah, so as being a father now, and now having all the information that I had that I didn't have when I was a kid, and having this argument with my folks about, like I said, Looney Tunes, wrestling, stuff like that, I agree with you. If I walked in and I saw Apollo, watching this, I'd be like, whoa, my man, what is going on here? It's not to say that particular spot. Let's start with that spot. Let's start with the spot that made this conversation happen. A bat with nails to the back. Egregious. That is my opinion. It may not be a popular one. I think that is too much. You want to cracks a body with a bat, something like that. You're talking about suplexing a man, and the man stands up, and that thing is still in his back. What if you are an inch off and you puncture something? You crack a spine, break a rib. Like, I understand the safety and the fact that these guys know what they're doing in terms of these spots. I get that. Egregious. And once again, I don't want it to cheapen the match. So something as thumbtacks, a chair shot to the back, something like that, I can sit and explain to Apollo, if I'm watching it with him, what it is. And that you don't do that. That does hurt and everything like that. The spots that are egregious and stuff like that, I agree with you. And I think that they have a place, not as prevalent. It shouldn't be that you watched one episode of AEW and you came out with 3 different matches where you were like, holy, like, what? Like, that's not wrestling at this point. You know? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. So I agree with you 150%. On prime time, I think you just have to be smarter about the way you do it. I know I've been ranting for a few minutes now, but I think it's just, overall, just have to be more intelligent about the way you use it and the way it comes across, because, you know, while fans are getting older and smarter, you still have young kids coming in. And while kids are getting smarter, you still have to be able to allow us as parents room to be able to teach the kids about this and what's going on and how, you know, real it is and things along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my thing is, like, again, I'm not coming from a standpoint of like it shouldn't be done. I mean, but like you said, there's a time and place for it. That's why I said at the pay-per-view, at the AEW pay-per-view for those 2 matches, I felt like that was okay, because you said something also that will kind of, help me prove my point, is that you said back in our day, we had WW, WW, WCW, ECW, but remember, ECW was a sought out product. The moment you found out about it is when if you wanted to see it, you went out of your way to go looking for it.
You found the way to watch it.
Right. And going back to my point, it's like, had people known, I mean, not to give away finishes, but like known on the ticket or on the purchase price, hey, by the way, on this event, this is going to happen, then by all means, at least you have a fair, as a parent, and, in your case, you have a fair chance to be like, maybe this is not something that I should watch with the family, or purchase those, expensive tickets like you mentioned, to say, oh, okay, I'm trying to, introduce my children into wrestling because it's something that I love and adore so much, and I want them to be a part of this. But maybe I don't take them to this event. I'll take them to the following event, which does disclose that none of that's going to happen. You get what I'm saying? So there's a time and place for it.
Yeah.
And then again, there's a market for it, because then otherwise GCW wouldn't exist, right? I mean, like, that is pure hardcore wrestling. That is the modern day ECW, but you go out of your way for that. You don't, it's not, on TBS or TNT or even on Max, because kids have access to all these apps now where they could come across and watch something like that. Right. So maybe I'm just being overprotective, or just like you said, the older we get, we kind of become more sensitive to the idea. But ultimately, I'm not opposed to it, but I do agree with you in the aspect of there is a better way of telling these stories in certain cases. And I mean, I guess maybe the other issue too was it was just so back to back. You know what I mean? Because the pay-per-view just happened on that previous weekend. They just had a match, and maybe because there were just too many spots like it, they were like, you know what? Let's push it for the rematch on Wednesday. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, in theory, when you say it out loud, it sounds nice. Thank you. As a fan, thank you. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I picked the wrong week to introduce Little John Michael to AEW.
To AEW.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is in terms of like being able to say to people, okay, on the card, something's going to happen today, so maybe you don't want to buy it. You know what you were saying before about like trying to let people know. Once again, you're in that dicey sales position because you're giving away something. You're giving away something big is going to happen in that match. You know what I'm saying? So from the marketing aspect of what these guys are doing, it's, once again, it's a tough spot. I think but I agree with you 150%. Like, I think the best recall is just trying finding a happy balance and not having it so close back to back. If that spot happens and then we don't see another spot like that for 3 weeks, different story. You went from Saturday to like the following Tuesday, like maybe a bit much, like we said. So I agree with you. There's a time and place. I'm not against it at all, but I think there needs to be smarter spots smarter. Because that's the other thing is like when you said nails and stuff like that, like I'm sitting there thinking, okay, tacks are usually real, but maybe it's one of those nails that are like, or bat that's got like a giveaway nail. Like when you push it, the nail just like goes down, something like that. And you're just like, oh, no, this man had a hole in his back. Like, so time and place and more intelligent. And once again, I think that is my age talking because if you had 22-year-old Ariel here, now I'm 45, so that's double. I'd be arguing with myself. But there's a responsibility, I think, that needs to come along with the storytelling that these companies do. Because if they want to have the audience that is from kids to adults, you have to find a way to live in that balance. This, if I'm there and I'm watching this guy take a bat to like a nail to the back and Apollo sitting right next to me, I'm covering his eyes. Like that's happening. Like I don't care. Like my kid's gonna see a lot of stuff in his life, a lot, and probably some worse than that. But I'm not going to be the one that brings him to that. Like I'd like to not. A lot of responsibility falls within these companies to find a sweet spot, and I think that's kind of where AEW I think is trying to work to. Like, how much can we do before shit starts getting a little crazy? Because you notice WWE has some hardcore stuff and has some great spots, some really dangerous things, but it's been a while since we've seen like the Crimson Mask on Stone Cold or like the this and that. Like, I mean, Cody got jacked, Cody got messed up, but I mean, blood is coming out of his eye and like that was it. It wasn't like soaked and bleeding, like the ring is red after being light blue the entire day. Like, so yeah, I think it's all about finding that sweet spot, man, to keep beating that dead horse.
Yeah. And actually, real quick, because I want to touch on something that you said and then we can go into final thoughts. There's a way of telling the story, and you know what? It's funny because to our listeners, we are long life fans of the sport. You know what I mean? But we're not the only ones that felt this way. I mean, it came out recently too that even Mr. Rob Van Dam, Mr. Hardcore, Mr. ECW himself came out and said that, that's not wrestling. That's not storytelling. That there are ways to do things differently. And to him who is a professional, who's still doing it, who's synonymous with hardcore wrestling.
I mean, when you think
he
ECW,
himself
you think
said
Rob Van Dam.
Right. Yeah. At least one, right? The Mount Rushmore, you know what I mean? Like, and even he said, like that's not wrestling to me, like a kick to the face, a dive off the turnbuckle out of the ring, etc. That's more storytelling than that. There was no place for that in his words, you know what I mean? So, but final thoughts, I as a fan, I love and respect the fact that I have the option to go out and seek that level of sports entertainment, so to speak. Just to, like you said, every once in a while, there's nothing wrong with a thumbtack, or chair to the face. Like, okay, course. Cool. Higher table, you know what I mean? I'd be a complete hypocrite if I said that I don't like hardcore wrestling because the last time MLW was in town, they lit a table on fire. They put the guy on top of a ladder, and then they did like a suplex through the table. And then the ambulance came and took him away because it was an ambulance match. You know what I mean? Like, it was awesome, but it was quick. It was fast paced. It happened and we all got over it. You get what I'm saying? Right. But this was a little rough because not only it wasn't quick. Maybe that was the issue. It just wasn't quick. It hit. It was on his back. Everybody was nervous. Like, it even felt like the respective teammates of each opponent that night almost like came out to kind of diffuse the issue, like to get eyes off of Moxley to kind of like, show like, oh, just, or Copeland's getting attacked from the outside by the Rough Riders or etc. Right. You know what I mean? So I guess it was just a very scary moment because like you said, 1 inch away or one false move, it could have turned ugly.
You could be perfect. There's I mean, look at draws. You could be perfect, in every aspect of the ring, and it takes one slip, one wrong move, one thing, 1 inch when you're throwing your body around and you're doing the things that these people, these men and women do. 1 inch is a long way, and it can change your entire life. So I agree. I mean, if I may offer my final thought, hardcore wrestling. I do. I just think WWE especially has gotten better in terms of finding a way to bridge that gap. Because here's the thing, a chair shot, stuff like that, is that really hardcore? Yeah, kind of, whatever. But like, for me, it's the salaciousness of the big spots, the Jack Perry wanted to use real glass, the nail in the bat, the this and that. Like, that's salacious. It's too much. It's gotcha wrestling. Look at what I can do. Look at what we can do. Da-da-da-da. I don't watch wrestling for the gotcha moments. Now, is Hell in a Cell one of the greatest, Undertaker Mankind, one of the greatest matches ever? Absolutely. Is it because that man went off the top of the cage, then went through the cage, and his tooth was coming out of his nose? Yes. But once again, it wasn't bloody. It wasn't a hole in someone's back. Like, he was messed up, but he was intact. And I just think, find a sweet spot if you can, because you have to give your viewers and your talent a way to explain, heal, and just do it. I mean, personally. So I agree with you. I enjoy the hardcore wrestling aspect of it. Time and a place, maybe not as salacious. We don't need as much blood around, I don't think. Unless now here's the thing. This is what you're saying. If you're advertising a blood duel match or something like that, that's a different story. But to have Edge or Copeland and Moxley and then come out in a hole in the dude's back, it's like, okay, wait a second. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between here that we could have done that we just didn't. So yeah, I feel like that's that kind of gotcha journalism is like gotcha wrestling. So and that speaks to what you said that Van Damme said, that tell me the story. Don't give me the spot. Tell me the story.
Exactly. Agreed. And final thought, since you mentioned it, how many of us really thought that it was a tooth that came out on Mick Foley's beard? When I was a kid, I thought it was a booger.
Everyone thought it was a booger. It was like, oh man, he got snot in his face. And you're like, nope, that's his tooth. It's like, oh,
that's his tooth.
Damn.
That just, yeah, wild. But all right, Primo. Well, that was our second episode of Lucha Hot Tag.
Lucha Hot Tag. I mean, it's probably sounded like a lot of moaning and complaining, but hoping. Well, I'd like to think that the people who are listening to us and everything are smart enough to realize that you and I are both adults, and as are they, so they can form their own opinion, whether they like ours or not. It's just where we live, in terms of how this wrestling game is going now. But in terms of wrestling in 2025, hardcore wrestling in 2025, final statement: love it. Let's just lose some of the salaciousness and some of the gore.
I second that. Now, before I tell you to what to do, why don't you hit us with that theme song one more time, and then hit us with the what to do.
Lucha Hot Tag, Lucha Hot Tag, Lucha Hot Tag. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank y'all for listening to not just this episode, but everyone prior. Eddie and I truly are blessed to have friends, family, listeners, people like you who are giving us the time of day that you could give to literally anywhere else in the world. So wholeheartedly from the bottom, thank y'all very much. We love you, and we will see you when we see you.
We will see you when we see you. Ciao.